I'm on it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, hi everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomads World weekly lecture. I'm Becca, and I will be your host today. And I'm talking with Caterina, who works within the co-living world, and she specializes in creating communities. So, welcome, Caterina.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for chatting with me today. So I'm going to just
Sure.
start with asking you, where are you from and where are you calling from today?
Okay, Becca, if I speak like that, where do you think I am from?
Well, I know where you're
It's
from.
easy to guess for everybody. So I am Italian. I was born in Italy and I moved to England in 2002. So it's going to be my 20th year of on and off being here. So England has been my base for the past 20 years, let's say this way,
Yeah.
but I've been traveling so much. So yeah, that's it.
So you grew up in Italy and moved to the UK, to London.
Yeah. Yeah, I moved just a little bit of London originally because I grew up in a very small village in the middle of nowhere. You know, one of those locations that now is like really sort of for rural co-living and co-working, and people wanted to escape city and wanted to go, immerse themselves. I grew up in a farm, and I just couldn't wait to escape. And I'm an urbanist. I am a city person. Take me to a city. But before I left, and it was way before smartphone, internet, Mark Zuckerberg, all of that. So it was a bit harder to really get in contact with people and having a feeling of a place without going there. And so I had a few people who lived in London before me. They told me maybe it was better to be maybe just a little bit outside of London because London might have been too chaotic. And so when I came, I went to a kind of like a satellite town, which is called Watford, and it's just northwest of London. I stayed there for a few years, and then I just kept on coming into, central London, and that's where I am at the moment. Yeah, I love it.
And
Magical
that's
city.
fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, where your remote work or your digital nomad kind of journey began?
Yeah, God. So I mean, I've always was very jealous in a sort of way of people that had a job back in the days. Again, when there wasn't as much, laptop usage and Wi-Fi everywhere, and already people that used to travel a lot for work. I remember I always used to say, that's what I want to do. I want to travel. Like I want to be away. I want to have a job that lets me go and explore. And growing up in a very traditional family, my mother always used to say, it's not good for girls. It's going to be hard for you to find a boyfriend and have a family. So I decided not to have a boyfriend and a family and to travel instead. So I know some people combine both, but I was like, no, maybe not. And so I stayed put for quite a while. And I think my traveling journey really started, I want to say about 11, 12 years ago when I qualified as a hairdresser a few years before. And then I just understood that I didn't want to start in just one place, and I wanted to travel. And so I joined more the fashion industry, which is still has a big influence on me and everything that I do. And I just started to travel a lot for all the fashion events. So I was like, okay, we traveled to Cannes for the festival, and then we traveled to New York, Milan, Paris for Fashion Week. And now Fashion Weeks are getting big everywhere, which is beautiful to see. So you have like Dubai Fashion Week, Moscow Fashion Week, anything. And, maybe not digital nomad back in the day, but more like nomad, really. And that's really when my passion for both, the remote and more traveling and being able to go away, working away and still being able to experience different things. That's really when it started. And also my passion for co-living, because I was never on my own. I was always with different teams. And normally we would all live together, either, even in the same hotels, but then we also would ask for the same floor. So we would all be there. And then it would be like the WhatsApp group is like, okay, come on, after party in my room this evening, or that sort of thing. Or we would rent, larger co-living spaces, which, if you want to call them, they were Airbnb spaces, but we will transform it into co-living and do the cooking together and do everything together, and always brainstorming about what we did, how we do it, doing more practice and doing all of that sort of thing. And I just, I was like, okay, this is the world I want to live in. I want to travel and I want to live with communities that I love.
So I guess at what point, so you had a lot of experience kind of within co-living as someone physically being like within a co-living situation whilst you were working within the fashion industry. So I guess at what point did you decide that you wanted to make focus on the co-living aspect and make that your career?
Yeah, that was about, 2022. So it was about 6 years ago, really, where first I started to be the one looking for places every time we were traveling, speaking to landlords and trying to convince my colleague to stay maybe a few days longer. And I just really loved that. And then, putting out more things of saying, okay, guys, we can find different places where we can go together and we can work together and we can do that sort of thing. And then I came back into London and I thought, okay, maybe I can just stay here for a little bit and see how this is going to work out. And then I started to work with a couple of real estate companies that they were having, like co-living spaces, which I thought were co-living. And instead, they turn out to be just standard, traditional room sharing rental. And I thought, okay, I have to do something about it. And that's when I joined Startuphome, which is the co-living space that I ran in London for a few years. Because when I met the guys from Startuphome, the founders, I was telling them, we were on a real estate actually event, and I was telling them, my passion for these sorts of things and for, bringing people together and creating communities and doing that sort of thing. And I haven't seen it happening in London. And they were like, we are happening. And I was like, who are you? And that's how we met. And I joined them straight away because I loved them.
So how long did you spend working with them?
So I ran Startuphome in London for nearly 3 years. Probably I have to say, I get emotional when I speak about it sometimes, but probably the best 3 years of my life. I met like amazing friends, a lot of them that also are quite digital nomads, but more slow digital nomads. So maybe 6, 8, even 12 months in a place and really, forge friendship and stay a little bit longer. And so I ran it until about, I think November 2020. Yeah, that's what it is. And I started 3 years before, and it was beautiful. It was a house in the north part of London, in a borough called Islington, for anyone that knows London quite well, which for me is one of the most beautiful boroughs. And it was between 12 and 14 of us. It depends, because I was very open to couples as well. And they've been some of the most amazing members that we had. So every time I hear of co-living spaces not being open to couples, I'm like, no, like if you do a good selection, it's fantastic. And there are some really cool, nomad travelers, couples that are so amazing. And I mean, the co-living itself called Startuphome was really focused around startuppers, entrepreneurs, people that live out of a computer and they start companies and that sort of thing. And they wanted to spend some time in London. And it was a bit like, taken from the models of like Silicon Valley in a sort of way, and just, hackathon houses. And I think that's where my love for tech also came from, because they were all quite nerdy and techy and, all of this sort of thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice.
What were some of your biggest challenges working, or I guess, so as the co-living manager, what was your role, or,
because the co-living was smallish, as I was saying. So I was obviously the house manager. So literally anything that a house manager would do, a house and facility manager knows if anything breaks, if there is anything really, problem with anything from the cleaners to anything else. Community facilitator and manager. And so organizing events, doing a lot of social, really taking the time to also speak to our members and understand how we could improve the place, what could we do, all of that sort of thing. And also I say a mom, a sister, a chef, everything that it goes. But and I also wanted to, there's been a moment where we were really thinking about maybe me being more involved in a more senior level and perhaps expanding Startup Home. And the big dream was to take the concept everywhere in the world and have a network of startup homes everywhere, etc. But then one of the co-founders of Startup Home, who was the one that actually had more real estate experience, left to join a movement which I think was called something like blockchain and NFTs way before anyone else knew about it. I was like, what is an NFT? It's like, you will find out in a few years. So he was very right. And then the other guys were more interested in the same kind of thing. So they were more like blockchains and technologies and all that sort of thing. So we put Startup Home on hold. And but it's still there. It still lives in our heart.
So I guess the actual place doesn't exist anymore. It's no longer a co-living.
No, the physical house is still there, of course. But the co-living, no, for now, no.
So I guess let's focus on. So what were your biggest challenges with being like a community facilitator?
I don't know really, because I really enjoyed it. I guess sometimes it was maybe keeping an emotional distance. Maybe that was my biggest challenge, keeping the emotional distance, because everybody who lived there really became my friend, and they are friends, and we are still friends. Like, we still have the WhatsApp group, and we still meet, and we still talk to each other. We still ask advice. We still, like if we were living together, just we're not living anymore. But really separating, the management side, sometimes you need to the, I really love you because you're my friend side. And so that became quite difficult over when you were maybe dealing with conflict, because, maybe one person would say, oh, this has happened with that person. And I would be like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I love you both the same. Who am I going to tell off? So it was also kind of like that. But in a sort of way, then I'm going to say something else, because a lot of people ask me about the challenges. But I also want to say what was beautiful about it. What was beautiful is how emotionally we all grew. So a lot of people who are startuppers and entrepreneurs, and they are that sort of, techie, very clever, super smart, etc. They often are also, quite reserved, quite introvert. And although they come and seek to have communities around them, it's very hard for them sometimes to really being really able to be involved, to take initiatives, and to really feel the community, and to understand that the community is there to help them, but also for them to share the skills and to thrive within the community. And I have to say that probably that was my biggest reward, like being able to create that, to see some of the members arriving and being very, very, reserved, introvert, really wary maybe also of other people and that sort of thing, and then just really flourishing within the community and just really giving so much to the community as well. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's one of the huge benefits of co-living and living with the community. I guess once you've finished running the co-living space, what did you do next, or what was the next part of your journey? Kind of you've put all this time into...
Yeah, so whilst I was at Startup Home, and especially when already before, but especially when the pandemic hit, and all we could do, at least in London, it was like that. It was going out for 1 hour a day for like a walk and maybe going to buy some food. But then you would spend the whole time in the house. And again, we were really lucky because the house was really big. We had a massive rooftop. We had like, full kitchen, one big living room. So it was really nice because you could vary the spaces. But I started to get heavily involved with Co-Liv. And Co-Liv is the global non-profit association for, that brings in together, educate, empower, and connect all the co-living ecosystem. And I've been following them, and I've been involved with them, but more like as a member and, like in a sort of way as a spectator. But then during the first month of the pandemic, Co-Liv really went, took all the virtual events immediately, and they started to kind of like do that one straight away. And I really enjoyed that. So I reached out to them, and I asked them if I could, be more involved into that. And I did. And so I became their head of ambassador, and I became super, super, super involved with that. And by being involved with that, also, I started to be more involved with all of our partners and working together with them. And our main core tech partner is SALTO. And so I started to get more involved with SALTO as well. And that's why I also work for SALTO now.
So you've still kind of kept in with the co-living, I guess, industry, but rather than actually running a co-living space, you now work for Co-Liv.
Yes, correct. So I'm part of we don't like to call it executive team anymore, but I think we prefer to call it like the power squad. So I'm part of the power squad that really drives Co-Liv and the initiatives, etc. Something that we wouldn't be able to do with all the other ambassadors that we have and everybody else who support us. But yeah, and I used to be I've been the head of ambassadors for a long time, and I've just passed the baton, like in the Olympics, to one of our other colleagues, Nabil, who used to be our head of operations. And now I think he does both, poor darling. And I've started to be more involved in the tech community as well in Co-Liv, because really tech is, I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But yeah, I'm still part of Co-Liv. Yeah.
Yeah, we've started getting in a few questions. The first question we have is, you mentioned co-living for couples. How about co-living for families with children? What would be needed in order to make something like that work?
This is very interesting. I don't know whoever asked this question, but thank you. It's something that at Co-Liv we discuss every single time. Even today, we had a big meeting. It was supposed to be our retreat, to spend all the time together, but then a little bit because of COVID, a little bit because of other things, we decided to push it virtually. But we were discussing about the summit that we are going to have this year. And one of the topics that we really want to explore is exactly this. There are a couple of associations and real estate companies that are doing this in France, and they're being very successful. I haven't lived there, but from what I read and when they interview the residents, etc. But I also think French people are very open to that. Yeah. In the UK, I have not seen something similar. What I have seen is I don't want to say explosion, because it hasn't really exploded yet, but there are a lot of co-housing. So it's very different than co-living, because normally co-living, you rent a property, and co-housing is more you own a property. But I think it's a step, right? It's a step in the right direction, where people say, well, it's amazing, being part of a community, being part of a co-housing. So we buy this property and we all live together, and we feel safe that our kids play together down, and we all know our neighbors, and we are all in the same, app, and everybody knows everything, etc. And I think co-living for these sorts of target markets, so families with parents and kids and small kids, etc., they are not able, maybe for whatever reason, or they might not want to purchase a property. So this is where this type of co-living will come in. And what I think we will see is probably operators taking over blocks of flats and just really dedicated to this, with like a nice communal areas and maybe like different communal rooms, etc., and just to do it. But the only thing is that there's not enough demand right now. There isn't enough demand. I think not as many couples with kids have understood the importance of being in this type of communities. I think there was this saying that a lot of time people use, which is, it takes a village to raise a kid, or something like that. And I strongly believe in that, actually. I think it makes such a difference. So I don't know if I replied to your questions. I thought I did. I think I did. But if you think about like some of the how do I say, multi-family condos in the United States, they kind of like already do that. But the problem that we see here is that in co-living, right, when you are running a co-living space and you are renting out, you have to be, for it to really work and to really be a community, you have to be selective of who comes and live in your space, right? So the onboarding process is crucial. This means that as a landlord and as an operator, you also need to be prepared to take a risk of saying, well, I'd rather this place to sit empty for a little bit longer, but it has to be the right type of tenant, the right type of family, the right type of member, because they have to work. It doesn't have to be someone who's just desperate, right? So that is something that is sometimes, I think, underestimated. So we have to find a way where the market, the target market, that type of segment is so mature that the demand is going to be quite high, so that will make operators and landlords quite comfortable in saying, yeah, let's do that, because I know we are going to fill the space. And I know that there's many people that hate that, because they say, landlord, just money grabbing people, that's all they want. But I mean, they are running a business, and at the end of the day, they have to.
Yeah, I guess that's something that's important in order for a co-living to work. Everyone needs to be on the same page and putting in the same and taking out the same, which I imagine involves quite not a rigorous process, but you've got to actually interview people, or maybe make sure that they're going to fit into the community to make it work.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's exactly the same. It's not different that when you have a work interview. It's not really different, because you need to really dig deep and understand, why do you have a work interview, and the person who interviews you, sometimes it's not just one person, it's 2 or 3 or 4, because one person has maybe analyzes in a sort of way a bit more your skills, if you need some certain type of skills. The other one try to understand if you would fit in with the company culture, with your colleagues, with everything that is happening. And the other person might try to understand how resilient you are to anything else. And when I used to onboard members for co-living, for my co-living at least, that's exactly what I was doing. So I would speak to them for maybe more than an hour. They would be invited into the house. They would sit down with our members. Not always, not all the members, maybe 1, 2, 3, it depends who was around. But for me, it was very important. And for example, one of the things that would always make me tip one side or the other, it was always when, are they asking me, like, who is here? Who are your members and what do they do and what do you normally do? Or are they only asking me, how is the room? Do you guys have parties? It's like, do you care about your community? Or do you just want a place which is nearby a tube station and convenient? So I think, your onboarding, your onboarding way of taking people changes as well, and you develop it. It depends, on your company, on your co-living brands, and your manifesto and everything else.
Yeah, for sure. So we have another question in. This one's an interesting one. Have you ever thought of making it possible for a group of nomads to travel together from one co-living to another? Almost like a traveling community.
Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. I mean, yes, I understand it. I tell you why, because I used to do the same. This is how my holidays used to be, but it used to be in hostels. So I don't know if the person who is here at the moment and asked the question is still here. Feel free to write whatever you want in the chat. And if you have experienced something like that, and for me it was beautiful. I did it in Scotland and I did it in Ireland, and I did it in Spain as well, I think. So you have these companies that own so many hostels and they are able to organize it. With co-living is just a little bit different because let's say it's 10 of us, just a number, it's 10 of us, and then trying to always find the co-living space for 10 people that suits us in the location that we want to, etc., is a little bit more difficult. I know that there is a company that does it. I think it's called Remote Ear, I think, or there are a few companies that do it, and so they have a lot of nomads traveling together, and there is always like a core, in a sort of way, team, if we want to call it, or core members. And then there's the other ones that join maybe for 2, 3, 4 months in different locations, then they go, then come back, etc. But I seem to understand that instead of being just co-living place, they really rent like massively beautiful, Airbnb spaces, which are suitable for co-living, but they are not purpose-built in co-living. And the reason why this would be difficult is what I was saying before. So we're going back to the fact that if there is going to be such a high demand, then probably co-living spaces will be open to do it. But otherwise, as a business model, first come, first serve in a sort of way. If you fit into our brand culture and everything that we are doing, I have 3 beds, 4 beds, 5 bedrooms, 2 flats, whatever available. I am going to rent it out, and then I'll see. So yes, it's beautiful. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think there is another. Isn't that what you guys do as well, in a sort of way?
Kind of. We do run. Well, we run overlanding experiences. I guess that was actually something I was going to mention with trying to have a moving community. I guess there are more demands, which makes it slightly different to someone who's traveling between hostel to hostel. For example, if you've got a co-living community of remote workers, you need to know that there's going to be good Wi-Fi. You need to know that there's desk space. So I guess there's a lot more demands that might make it more challenging to know that the place that you're going to is going to be set up for what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are the challenges. And again, this sector of the market will mature. There will be more demanding of this, and you will see more spaces popping up like that. For if it's not a co-living, again, as I was saying before, it might be a hotel that is struggling. So we'll see a lot of hybrid between hospitality, co-living, co-working, and everything. So maybe a hotel that is not always very busy and decided the 2 top floors are co-living. One of the bedroom becomes a communal area, the other bedroom becomes maybe a kitchen, and then people stay in these 2 floors. The technology will help as well. Like, for example, if you have different type of access management, so if you tap your card, you're the only one who's allowed to go up in the elevator to those floors. You're the only one who's allowed to enter certain rooms, etc. I think we already see these sorts of things, right? A lot of hybrid models. That, yes, proper co-living spaces offering something like that. I'm not sure how much right now as a business. I don't think it makes that much of a. I don't think. Oh, I think she's. Oh, Becca, where are you? I think Becca disappeared. Okay, well, I'll entertain you. I'm gonna carry on until she comes back. Yeah, this is what I think. It's I mean, the idea is beautiful because I think it's something that I was considering as well. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts about it, and I was like, okay, hold on a second. So basically, I can travel with like a lot of nomads and do this one for the whole year, and we'll go from one place to another, and someone is going to look for the right accommodation, for the right space, and they will tell us in advance, what kind of co-living adventure is. I think they do 1 month at a time in different spaces and places. So it's like they go from, maybe like Tenerife to Morocco, to Greece, to, I don't know, South America, or that sort of thing. But again, I think it's, as a business model, it would be very difficult to sustain for a space and a place, because it's still not very mature to really, to really sustain that. I think hotels can do it, maybe because they have different branches. And so maybe we'll see it in the future with brands like, for example, Common. I don't know if anyone who's listening, but Common is a co-living, but also living company that has exploded in United States. I think they also incorporated a couple of other co-living companies and co-living brands during the pandemic, and I think they could do something like that. Maybe I'm just thinking about it because they have so much stock in a sort of way that maybe whatever they do in one place then will balance what they don't do in another space and place. But beside that, I think it will be hard. But have a look at what I was saying to you. I think it's called Remote Ear or something like that. Remote Ear or Remote Tribe, or both. Take a look at both and see. And that should be able to help you. Oh, she's back.
Hi, yeah. Sorry about that. I do apologize.
Oh, it's all right. No worries.
Completely cut out.
No worries at all.
Exactly what we were saying about remote working.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today. I do apologize for that little glitch at the end there. Thank you for everyone who joined today's talk. And if you want to find out more about what Caterina is doing, or if you want to find out more about Co-Liv, they can head to, does Co-Liv have a website?
Yeah, so Co-Liv has a website and is www.co-liv.org, but I guess you're going to post this somewhere, so probably will be like in the notes in there. And yeah, that's who we are, that's what we do. And if you want to find out anything else also on the other thing that I do, which is more technology for access management, so you have any question about any type of technology in co-living, how can it help digital nomad more, because I really believe it will much more. It will give you much more freedom, and yeah, just reach out, and yeah, always happy to have a chat with someone.
Perfect. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. And if you want to join us again next week, we will be at 5 p.m. UK time, and I will be speaking with Shelley Agam, who is a digital nomad architect. So I'm going to be chatting to her about traveling and working as an architect, and yeah, tips on how to make somewhere feel like a home as a digital nomad. So thank you again, Caterina.
Can I say something before we leave? I met Shelley in Bansko when we were all there for the Nomad Festival. First of all, she's an amazing girl and woman. That she really is a true digital nomad. I'm a digital nomad with my base in England, and every so often I have to come back and stay here for a month or so because I love London so much. And then I go for 1 month or two, and then I come back. But Shelley, she's the king. She's the queen of digital nomads, honestly. And please tune in because she will have so much to share. It'd be a really great one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
And thanks everyone for joining me today, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.